Okay, so I think we're all here. Lauren, do you want to, let's see, start us off?
Absolutely. Welcome, everyone. We are so excited for our virtual wine tasting. I see it looks like folks have made some really nice setups in their backyards. A few folks are outside and in their living rooms, and one day we'll be together, but we're happy to be doing this virtually. For those of you who I haven't had a chance to meet yet, I'm Lauren Swartz, the president and CEO of the World Affairs Council in Philadelphia. And for over 70 years, many of you know that we've been bringing our community fresh and nonpartisan civil discourse on critical issues affecting the world. Some of us would put wine into that category too, a critical issue affecting the world. And we're excited to test that hypothesis with you all tonight. This virtual wine tasting is part of the Council's Beyond Our Borders series, where we're spotlighting Chile. As many of you know, this is a new series in 2021 that allows our council to focus on a single country throughout all of our programs, and it culminates in a travel opportunity abroad and at the end of this year, beginning of next year. And we're covering diverse topics under industries and viewpoints and shepherding audiences to develop a nuanced understanding of Chile. Of course, we can't do that without talking about wine. And so far, we've covered Chile's constitutional referendum, where we had the chance to speak with two Chilean senators from different political perspectives. A few weeks ago, we heard from Chile's experts in the tourism industry about what is so special about visiting this beautiful country. And just this Monday, we discussed Latin America's economic outlook with former central bankers from both Chile and Argentina in the same program. You can find all of these discussions on the Council's YouTube channel or by visiting our website, wacphila.org, and viewing the past events page. And we are really excited and delighted to present this series in a partnership with our friends at the Chilean American Chamber of Commerce of Greater Philadelphia and the Honorary Consulate of Chile in Philadelphia. I'd like to take a moment, of course, to thank them and all of our sponsors of the Beyond Our Borders series, including Tierra Hotels, the Port of Wilmington, Delaware, the Delaware River Stevedores, the Port of Philadelphia, Western Fumigation, the Maritime Exchange for the Delaware River and Bay, and Tasty Fruity International. And thank you also to our promotional partner and our friends at Pro Chile Philadelphia. And while we can't be together tonight, although I feel like it's coming soon, the virtual tasting is intentionally small and intimate, where we can connect. So feel free to leave your cameras on, although if you've been on camera all day and you'd like to turn it off, feel free to do that too. And ask questions throughout our program. You can use the raise hand function in Zoom, which looks a little bit, you get little emojis or icons that pop up. And you can also type your name or your question into the chat. And I'm happy to read your question, but we're also happy to have you unmute and engage directly with the other folks here with us tonight and our speaker, Courtney Kingston. And we'll taste wines from her winery, Kingston Family Vineyards, and hear all about the stories of how this came to be. We'll learn about the winemaking process and the history of the Kingston family, which spans a few continents and many countries, and a wonderful story, which we'll unpack tonight. And of course, in true world affairs fashion, the global perspective and international connectivity will be woven through our tasting this evening. Now I'd like to introduce our friend and our partner, Alexander Gravois, the trade representative of Pro Chile here in Philadelphia, for some opening remarks and a short video presentation. Alexander, I pass the virtual mic to you.
Great, thank you so much, Lauren, for the welcome introduction, and thank you everybody for joining in tonight. Pro Chile, we're very delighted and thrilled to be working with the World Affairs Council, the Chilean and American Chamber of Commerce of Greater Philadelphia, and the Honorary Consulate of Philadelphia on this incredible project that really covers a great number of topics and industries near and dear to our hearts. For tonight's discussion, it's important for those that don't know about Pro Chile. We are the Chilean government organization responsible for trade promotion. So we work with products from really anything you can imagine, commodities to value-added products, but of course, wine being an emblematic and almost as an ambassador product around the world. It's very important for us to continue to promote our products and our vineyards to really allow for you all to learn about what we have to offer, as well as to really get a taste of Chile and really see the high quality products that we can put to the table. For Chilean wine, We have a very unique industry that allows for us to have grapes that are very different from around the world. Our geographic location is key, as we have the Andes Mountains, the Pacific Ocean, and the Humboldt Current, which allow for the cold nights and warmer days that gives the grapes higher levels of acidity, higher quality, and also great phytosanitary qualities to it. The Philadelphia area has been a very important market for wines. Chilean exports to the Philadelphia area port districts, including Port of Wilmington and Philiport, have been up about over doubles from 2019 to 2020, and it's something that we can hope to continue to work with. And due to our great partners at the ports and logistics, as well as the great initiatives of vineyards such as Kingston Family Vineyards, we've been able to really make a big mark in promoting wine in this area, not just for the East Coast, but also out through the Mid-Atlantic regions and throughout the country. So thank you again, Lauren, and we're definitely looking forward to it. Before we pass the microphone along to the Honorary Consul, Benjamin Leavenworth, we'd like to show a short video on wines of Chile, just to help give some context and also a visual aid before we get into the rest of the program. Thank you again.
The wines of Chile are well known throughout the world, and so that's what we wanted to do today, is come to one of the best valleys and taste a variety of different grapes.
Vim a Santiago porque eu adoro vinho, né? Então tenho procurado conhecer algumas regiões vinícolas. Além disso, gostaria de ver neve também.
Eu gostaria de juntar o vinho, que a gente gosta muito, com a neve, que eu também gosto muito.
A comida também é ótima. Lá no Atacama a gente comeu muita comida típica e a gente amou. Foi incrível.
O pisco também é muito bom, com rica de que a erva lá do Atacama ainda fica melhor ainda.
On est allé visiter une pisqueria, ici dans la vallée de l'Alqui, à côté de Vicuña. Donc le tout du processus de fabrication du pisco. C'est quelque chose qu'on ne connaissait pas et en plus c'est marrant parce que ça se rapproche un peu du cognac en France. Et c'est bon.
C'était très bon.
I think one of our favourite things about Chile is probably the drinks, so the wine and the pisco.
Foi a melhor decisão que a gente poderia ter tomado. Vir para Casablanca, fazer vinhos de alta qualidade. E eu acho que tudo isso tem a ver com o solo e com o clima que tem aqui.
Chile produces one of the best wines, the quality in the world.
We get it in Australia as well. So,
yeah.
But to have it here in this setting is, it's amazing.
Bueno, muy buenas tardes. Les doy un afectuoso saludo desde el corazón chileno y les doy un salud con esta copa de vino. Muy bienvenidos a todos. And good evening, everyone. And before I move into my remarks, please, and Courtney has asked me to put this message out to everyone. Please, everyone, start drinking the wine now. This is part of the fun of the event. So do not be hesitant, and do not let formalities get in the way of the wine. So salud a todos y muy bienvenidos. My name is Benjamin Leavenworth. I'm the honorary consul of Chile here in Philadelphia. Actually, my jurisdiction includes the states of Pennsylvania, Delaware, and southern New Jersey. And I want to thank, on behalf of the Republic of Chile, to our dear friends at the World Affairs Council of Philadelphia, particularly Lauren. Thank you so much for your leadership on this extraordinary program, which, by the way, is making very positive waves in Chile already. It could not come at a better time for Chile to be able to feature the many aspects that make Chile such a unique and special country. And Haley and Maggie, thank you for running truly flawless programs. And thank you very much, my dear friend Alexander Carbois. Pro Chile is one of the great success stories of Chile as Chile emerged into the modern country that it is today. Pro Chile has been a terrific platform to connect countries with Chile's innovation and potential. And I would like to extend a very warm and cariñoso welcome to my dear friend Courtney Kingston and to Kingston Family Vineyards. Thank you for this fantastic treat. This is a dream in a way to connect us. While virtually you're going to connect us tonight to the land and the soil of not only an extraordinary vineyard, but an extraordinary country that, like all countries, is going through its own iterations and processes in terms of figuring out how it confronts the future. So I just wanted to thank everyone on behalf of Chile. And if you would excuse me, I would like to take my official consul hat and put on my hat as a fellow wine lover, and share with you, give you a little context as to the background and why Chile and its wines are so interesting, and frankly, it's a little bit of the untold story, because Chile has, for many people, has been sort of a relatively new wine experience. So just a little bit of full disclosure. Prior to being consul, and many years before that, I was actually one of the co-founders of a winery in Chile called Viña Cono Sur. And it was at a time when Chile was just returning to the global stage, and the country had changed dramatically. And one of the first industries, aside from our traditionally extractive industries such as copper and forestry, et cetera, to really become part of Chile's globalization efforts was the wine industry. And I was honored and to actually be part of this generation, comprised of Chileans, bold and visionary Chileans, and some courageous gringos who together helped really launch Chile's global presence in wine. And of course, many other things came along with that. And, along with that came the fruit and many of the innovations. And certainly wine, in a way, is really emblematic of Chile's story. So let me just step back to the comment that I made. Chile is often thought of as a new player in wine. And guess what? Chile has a 500-year history in wine. And it tells, and the story of Chilean wine tells so much about Chile as a country, and it actually talks a lot about the potentials, or the potential the positive elements of being a part of a global culture, and of course some of the pitfalls. And this is certainly what the World Affairs Council does, right? So tonight we will talk about wine, but it will also be very firmly placed in the context of not just history, but today. And Courtney is going to give us quite a bit of context of what it actually takes to produce world-class wines and get them to just about every corner of the world. So first of all, let's start off with the fact that Chile, 500 years ago, when it was a colony of Spain, was producing wine. Now, one of the interesting things that people often do not know is that the wines that Chile, and frankly the region was producing, along with its olive oils, were so outstanding that it became a threat to the growers back in the old world. And believe it or not, it became such a threat that there was a mandate from the Spanish crown to essentially pull up all of the olive orchards and the vineyards, because the wines and the olive oils were just so good. And for several hundred years, people living in Latin America and particularly in Chile, et cetera, were forced to drink this horrible vinegary schlock that was sent over by the Spanish crown, essentially, a protectionist move, and highly to subsidize, the European growers. Well, I don't want to offend anyone, but I would like to suggest that if Chile had a chance to actually be producing the fantastic wines that they were producing for 500 years, I think the schlock wine we might be drinking might be the wine from Bordeaux. But that's another story, and please don't anyone quote me on that. But anyway, so essentially then, there's this period where Chile's wine is basically, what we would call mission grapes. It's basically a wine for the home, for the church services. And then, on one of Chile's many sort of cycles of evolution, Chile becomes a relatively rich country thanks to particularly nitrates in the north. These wealthy, probably by today's standard, billionaires look to Europe and they say, my gosh, we're now we're rich. We should do what Europeans do. And what do Europeans do? They have vineyards. So the Chilean wealthy class went to Europe, particularly to France, and essentially recreated French vineyards in Chile. And this included the varietals, which included the classic varietals that we all know: Cab, Merlot, Cabernet, Franc, etc. But also a variety called Carmenere, which actually was widely planted in Europe. Move forward, vineyards are wiped out by phylloxera thanks to the humble American wild vine, grapevine, and grafting. The vineyards are rescued in Europe, and Europe once again picks up its pace. And Chile's the vicissitudes of the economies, the global nitrate trade, and a lot of these vineyards go into sort of become left kind of at the wayside, and many people, ultimately wine becomes more of a popular drink again. Actually, companies like Concha y Toro, et cetera, were also essentially in the 1960s were big jug wine companies, and it was really the wine was really being drunk by the people, and people at home with dinners, but the wealthy people drank whiskey, et cetera. Then another change comes in. We talk about the 80s, and the 80s is the introduction of modern, primarily California-led viticultural techniques, winemaking, stainless steel, a focus on varietals, and then Chile really hits the world stage in the early 90s, where it's rediscovered as a new kid on the block. But we all know that that's not true. I mean, but and Chile is seen as a producer of just some terrific value wines.
I would like to essentially cue up Courtney and Kingston Family Vineyards, because they are truly part of the modern evolution of Chile's winemaking history.
Well, thank you, everybody. It is such a pleasure to be with you guys. I am, as you can see in my background, I'm up in Cinco Cerro. And let's see, Maggie, you're up there with me. Cristina, you're up in Cuatro Cerro, in Casablanca. So un placer. Let's talk through the wines and just kick it off. I actually, I debated about whether to suggest you start, if you're going to start with a white wine or a lighter wine, which I often do when I'm tasting through a flight, whether to start with the Sabino Chard or the Rocio Rosé. So actually, depending on your pleasure, pick one. And if you're a red person, you're like, I just want to go straight to the reds. That is terrific as well, as I said in the chat. So we are a small producer, actually, and as Ben and Lauren shared, what we're hoping to do today is give you all a lens into the Chilean wine industry through the experience of Kingston Family. So we are going to talk about our experience, but again, we are the experience of one, but I think it's a kind of hopefully a special lens. So to talk about the first two wines, by the way, I have them poured side by side in front of me. I often think it's helpful to, people love to hear about visioning and romance, but they also want to know the tactics, like how do you do this? What do you do? I'm guessing that many of you are wine enjoyers or wine drinkers, and also clearly intellectuals and lifetime learners as being part of the World Affairs Council. So I thought you might enjoy this a little bit. I believe Haley sent out ahead of time the PDFs with the tasting mat, with the 4 wines and the 4 circles around. And so typically we would taste from lighter wines to darker. Why do we do that? It's actually because it is easier on your palate. If you started, for instance, with the Syrah, which by the way, you're still welcome to do, it's a little harder for your taste buds to go back to maybe a more delicate rosé or our Chardonnay. So that's why I suggested. Typically, depending on my dishwashing needs and interest, that's how many wine glasses I have out. The most important thing is that your wine glasses are similar. So they don't all need to be perfect, but the more that they can be the same size when you're tasting wine side by side, the better. So that's one little tip for you. So, and then the last thing I actually have, because I love to taste everything, is my trusty spittoon, which is just a mug. And it's as simple as that. And then what I do is I taste and then I retaste. And because I still want to be standing by the time I get to the 4th wine, or I go to a wine that I'm really enjoying and I want to continue to taste for the evening, I will actually spit the wine out in my little spittoon. So I just have a simple mug here. I like it because nobody likes to look inside a spittoon. All right, so for the first 2 whites, since we've got the Sabino Chardonnay and the Rocio Rosé, Casablanca, our little valley, was actually originally planted in the 80s and was known for white wines. That's what people expected from Casablanca. They said coast cool. And in fact, when I taste our wines, I can feel the cool ocean breeze. We are only 10 miles as the crow flies, and I speak in miles since most of you are American, in terms of to the ocean. And in fact, on a clear day on our farm in our vineyard, you can actually see the Cordillera, you see the Andes, you can see Aconcagua, and behind you, when you turn around, you can see the Pacific. So it's a really cool Mediterranean climate. Both of these wines, and in general, Kingston wines, tend to be higher in acid. So what is acid? That's typically actually what helps you taste flavor. It actually makes wine perfect pairing for food, and our wines are sold 90% direct. That means that they are sold primarily to people's homes where they're enjoying them with food. The 10% that is not direct is actually in restaurants, in top restaurants. So for instance, let's see some names you might recognize. Michael Mina. None of us have been to restaurants in a while, but we can dream and look forward to them again as they are opening up. Masa in New York, as well as Jean-Georges are just some names. So when I taste, I'm going to start, I've actually got the Sabino on the left and the Rocio on the right. And also when you're going to taste wine, I'm going to show you guys, my friend Sarah talks about tasting like a somm. So we're going to taste like somms. And somm is a sommelier. In the industry, we call them somms, so it's just easier than saying sommelier. The first thing I do actually is swirl my glass a little bit. And since you're in front of your keyboards, be a little careful. I actually do it. I can see Lauren's doing it in the air. She's super gutsy. Why are we doing this? We're trying to give some air to the wine. So think of your wine as like it's a little genie in a bottle. And in fact, a cork, a natural cork, lets that bottle breathe. And a screw cap, as you saw on our Sabino Chardonnay, actually keeps the freshness. So we can get into a whole conversation about screw cap versus cork and what do you like and why did we decide to just do that for our Chard, but not our Pinot? And we can talk about that next. But when I taste both of these wines, actually, what they share to me is that brightness and that acidity and that freshness. So the first thing I do is I swirl, then I stick my nose in, like really stick it in, like, go on, Alexander, I saw you thinking about it, and take a big sniff. And, you know, one little fun unknown thing is that actually we are nostril dominant. I learned this from my friend Laura, who's a som. So try it, see whether you actually get more out of the right or the left. For me, I'm right. And I can actually pick up on that, which is kind of fun. So you're smelling, and then you're going to take a sip. And enjoy. And hopefully you're going to let it coat over your mouth. Now, our Chardonnay, we actually make it in all of our wines in a very hands-off style. So everything for us starts in the vineyard, which is why our pictures are in the vineyard, because that is where Amael, our winemaker, spends all of his time, is walking through the rows. So winemakers are not scientists. And in fact, the best Chilean winemakers have stains on their hands. I do not have stains on my hands as I'm talking to you right now, because I have been grounded in the US for going on since March 14th of 2020. And have been unable to travel down south, which has been super hard for me. We've just wrapped up our second vendimia in Chile. And those are the only two I've ever missed in our 20 years. All right, so the rosé, just really quickly, is a rosé of Syrah. So rosé, for any people who enjoy the business of wine, is fascinating. I was interested in when somebody first said, oh, it's just perfect. Rosé is actually just a byproduct. We actually make it when we're making Pinot Noir, we're just sort of bleeding off some of the juice to lead to more of an intenser red wine. Other wineries like ourselves make our rosé intentionally. So we actually pick the grapes for the rosé. And the reason why it's pink is because of a limited skin contact. So our last wine that we're tasting is Syrah, also from Kingston. By the way, we don't buy any grapes. Our grapes are 100% estate grown and wherever possible, organically farmed. Any questions about those wines? I love it that Lauren said, drop them into the chat. You can raise your hand. I want this to be a dialogue, not a soliloquy, and have it be a conversation. All right, I'm gonna back
Courtney,
up and try. Oh, please, yeah.
Courtney,
go ahead.
Benjamin here. Just tell us a little bit. Are you doing any malolactic fermentation on this chard? It's definitely got some nice buttery note, but it's not overly oaked, which is
right. Thank you for noticing that. So malolactic fermentation is also known as the cheers, Kathy. Is known as the secondary fermentation. And everything we do at Kingston is actually all as natural as possible. So we actually do not inoculate. That's called when you actually add yeast or you're trying to move a process through. By the way, we are teeny. Kingston is one of the smallest producers in Chile. We only produce about 3,000 cases or 30,000 bottles a year. That is what our entire industry in Chile probably spills in the morning on the floor of the bodega. Like we are a little drop in the water. And we are among one of the newer wineries because we've actually only been making wine for the last 20 years. We've been farming in Casablanca for 100 years. And I'll get to that history, how somebody with a name like Courtney Kingston could be making wine in Chile. And I know that some materials were sent out to you all ahead of time. And so you probably had a chance. And I even saw, is it Alex or somebody was holding up, I can see you even did some of your homework and had, or maybe it was Joseph, a little bit of our tasting notes and marketing materials. So for our ML, it's actually all natural. And in fact, we have been known to do simple things like move a barrel outside just so it can warm up a little bit so that those yeast will wake up and naturally start fermenting again. We've actually even done crazy MacGyver things where we've lowered down little aquarium heaters into the barrel, believe it or not, to get the natural native yeast to wake up. Our oak program, actually, we're intentionally very gentle on our oak program. When I was first immersing myself in wine about 25 years ago, it was, when you're first learning about something, you're looking for black and whites, sort of just give me some absolutes. I just need some road markers, right? And so what I learned was oak good, concrete bad, stainless meh. And our Chardonnay, actually, to my palate, I pick up on a lot more minerality, even a little bit of sea spray, and less of the vanilla and the riper. And so that actually comes from our cool site. We are in the far, far western corner of Casablanca. So we are the first to get the fog and the last to see it go. For anybody who knows, for instance, the California coast or the San Francisco Bay Area, think of the outer sunset as opposed to inner San Francisco. So it's quite cool where we are. And our grapes, we actually pick with a higher acid profile than if we were ripening in a warmer site. And then our oak, we actually work with, we use all French oak, but we've been transitioning from less backing off what we would call our new oak program and doing more and more larger oak vessels, and actually these concrete eggs that look like rocket ships. They're super fun. So a good way to think about Kingston is a Chilean American family that has been farming in Chile for 100 years and yet is on the forefront of bringing hopefully the best of Chile and our Chile's openness to international learning to our own soils. So that's why we do crazy things like concrete eggs and little aquarium heaters and things like that. All right, the last thing I left out when we were talking about the smell, right? The swirl, the smell, and the taste. I left out two things. One was see. So the first thing you want to do, I often use my trackpad, my mouse pad, because mine's white, because I'm a Mac user, to look at the color of the wine. And so you'll also see there, Benjamin, that our Chardonnay tends to be more pale. If we were ripening in a warmer site where the grapes were getting a lot riper, and then we're transitioning into higher alcohol, that would probably be a creamier, darker, almost yellow. Whereas ours is almost clearer, almost trending more towards maybe a Sauvignon Blanc. Let's see. Okay, we got some good questions here. I love this. Haley, has it been difficult running the winery while you've been in the US during the pandemic? Yes, but thankfully, we have two things. One, we have, first and foremost, an incredibly talented team on the ground. So our longtime winemaker, Amael Orrego, joined us from a winery called Emiliana, which is the organic branch of Concha y Toro, about 6 years ago. And he is really our, in many ways, we all work for Amael. It's thanks to his talent and his experience that we are able to make the wines that we do, and the rest of us are along for the ride. The other is that my family is Chilean American. So while I have been not able to travel to Chile, half of my family has been in Chile, not able to travel to the US. And so we are, while we're not able to be there, we're very in close touch with the rest of our family. But it has, the hardest thing has actually been the emotion of it all. I mean, one of the reasons why I do what I do is to have the blessing of going to Chile and going to Casablanca and connecting with my family's identity, connecting with our role within the Casablanca community. And I've really, really missed that. So thank you all, because in speaking with you all today, I am traveling with you back to Casablanca and to our farm, to a place that I really love. So let's pour some more wines. I'm gonna get my reds in my glasses, and then I'm gonna tell you guys some history, because you're probably wondering a little bit like how a gal named Courtney Kingston. By the way, our daughters, I've got 3 daughters, and my husband and I named them Anita, Annie, Luisita, Luisa, and Carolina, Caroline. Why? Because I have lived my entire life with everybody calling me Courtney, because my name is so difficult to pronounce with a Chilena accent. All right, so now I've poured the 2 wines. I've actually got the Tobiano in my left glass and the Lucero in my right glass, or in your glasses 3 and 4. All right, Mario, hay una pregunta. No malolactic in this wine, I suppose. By the way, Christoph, look at that. A pleasure. Hi, Christoph. Which wine? Where are you, Christoph? Okay, I want to see your vasito. No puedo verlo. Ma.
The Chardonnay.
El Chardonnay. Actually, it is. No, there is some ML in the Chard, but it is very, I'm gosh, now you got me wondering. I mean, I'm like going to send you a follow-up note if I'm wrong. I believe, let me see. Yeah, it's very slow and gentle. So again, it's native. So we don't force it. Often people would inoculate and add non-native yeast, or to make sure it completely goes all the way through. And in our case, we're just sort of gently seeing what happens. So that's why also you don't pick up, you like Ben didn't pick up on a lot of that butteriness that you would typically pick up in malolactic fermentation. Great question. By the way, my Lucero is corked, which is a great conversation for us to have. Raise your hand if you have ever tasted a cork wine. Look at this. You guys have good palates. Because one of the things, Kathy's got her hand like strong. All right, so you got like the wet cardboard, right? It's like a robbery. Can you think of any other food or drink that we love where it is a natural occurrence that anywhere between, and it's like the range is significant, 2 to 8%, where there might be a reaction with the natural cork to rob your drink of its fruit. It's really a winemaker's just bane of their existence, right? And it happens naturally with natural cork. It also can happen if your winery has a problem with sorry, I'm not going to get into the chemistry, but basically there is a chemical reaction, chlorides in there somewhere. You do not ever, by the way, when you're cleaning in your winery, you never want to use anything with chloro because it can lead to corked. That is not the situation here. What's happening with my bottle of Lucero is that it's actually just, it's the natural cork where it's fallen into that small percentage. But if that ever happens to you and you guys are all clearly experienced, just ask your som to get you another bottle. Or if you got it direct from Kingston, boop, 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 call us and we'll send you another bottle. Because we want nothing more than for you to have the full experience of that bottle of wine. So I am going to focus completely on Tobiano here in my tasting. All right. So now we're going to talk about Pinot and Syrah. Does that sound good? Are you guys game? Anybody staying with the whites? You're like, I don't want to do reds, or I'm not ready. By the way, on a typical night in my house, we always start with a white and then we transition to a red. So we use a lot of, we still call them the yuppie pumps. We use a lot of those to take out a little bit of the air to make sure that the wine, because it's just my husband and I drinking, so that the wine can last hopefully for another day. And actually in some of Kingston wines, sometimes I find the wine's even better the next day. It's just got such great stuffing. So I still haven't told you the story about Kingston. Good. I'm so glad, Christoph, that yours is okay, that I'm the only one with the corked wine. So Pinot, why Pinot? Okay, so this is going to quickly take you back to the story behind Kingston Family. So my great-grandfather and my great-grandmother were from the US, which is why I have a face like this. And I sound like I sound. I actually was born in the US. My dad, my uncle, my grandfather, my great aunts were all born and raised in Casablanca. I joke that I do the reverse commute. Why is that? Well, everybody was born down there and then would get sent to the States. So our family was fully integral in Chile, but focused on the US for education for their kids. And then one family member per generation would come back and run the farm. Why not more? There was no job for them. They were, go do something else, and hopefully don't quit your day job because the farm will probably need you. And that's what I grew up with. I grew up in the States with the knowledge that we had this special place where my father had grown up that was our responsibility, that it was our responsibility to continue to provide jobs in the Valley of Casablanca, and whether it was in our lecheria, in our dairy, in our beef cattle, or in whatever we could offer in the valley. So Gramps and Grandma Grandma Kingston went down to Chile in 1906. So he was from the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. That was copper country in the late 1800s. You can imagine where this goes, copper, Chile. He was also looking for gold. We joke we're still looking. So basically, he and Grandma made a bet on a bankrupt gold mine in Casablanca. I don't think any of you have heard about the great gold rush of Casablanca. There's a reason for that, because it never happened. And so essentially in the mid 1920s, they ended up as the suckers on their deal. I'm glad, Michael, you're amused by this. And they ended up with a lot of land, some cows, thankfully, a very patient marriage, and they settled. They loved the area and stayed. So that's how we ended up with our farm. And we ended up in grapevines when I was at Stanford for my graduate degree. There was always this animo in our family to, what are you going to do for the farm? Ask not what the farm can do for you, apologies to JFK, but what can you do for the farm? How can you help? Don't quit your day job, and don't ever bet the farm. And so I was living in Northern California and watching what's happening on the Sonoma coast in particular, with these small independent vineyards that were growing Pinot Noir and doing a spectacular job with their connection to the land. At the same time, my great-grandfather basically stayed as a mining engineer. He was really just a gentleman farmer. But my grandfather, we joke that he graduated from that great ag school of the East, Harvard College, in 1935, graduated on Wednesday, married my grandmother, who was 18, from Somerville, on Thursday, and the ship set sail on Friday. And his passion was the dairy business. And then my uncle, Enrique Allende, who's as puro Chileno as I'm pura gringa, grew the dairy business. And our dairy business today, actually, we have about 1,200, 1,500 head of dairy cattle. And we are a significant producer of fresh milk for yogurt and other dairy products for the Santiago area. But the price of milk is set by the Kiwis. You know, one of the best things about Chile is that we are completely oriented to the world and understanding of the world. One of the biggest challenges is that we can be at the end of that bullwhip, particularly in commodity pricing. So I grew up with this mentality of what can we do? What new businesses, what new jobs could we create that would actually speak of the farm and protect it, possibly insulate it from that boom bust cycle? Pinot. So you have in front of you our Tobiano, Pinot Noir, and our Lucero Syrah. So by the way, all of our wines are named after horses on our ranch. When my dad was growing up on the farm in the 40s with his siblings, you were given a cow for responsibility to milk and a horse for transport. Like that's how you got around. These are working quarter horses. These are not Arabian Nights. My great-grandfather did have a betting problem. He loved to go, he belonged to a place called the Club Hípico, and he loved to bet on horses. But these horses that your wines are named after are inspired actually by their pelaje, by their coat. So Tobiano is a painted horse, and Lucero is a horse with a bright flash, like luz on its forehead. All right, so Pinot Noir is nicknamed the heartbreak grape. Maggie, I love it that you've like, now you're down by the Careta, down Antigua, down in the lower parts where we grow our Sauvignon Blanc. I love that you're like shifting around with your, as you move through your virtual background. And Ian, I have to compliment you on your Torres in the back. Did you take that picture yourself?
Yes, I did take the picture. We had a wonderful vacation in Torres del Paine and in Argentina, but hiking in Torres del Paine was absolutely magnificent.
Oh my gosh. Did you make it to Fitzroy on the Argentine side too, I'm guessing?
Bariloche on the Argentinian side.
Okay, so you're in the Lake region, Lake District. Terrific.
But I hiked with some Chileans and we used to play liar's poker at night with them. Wonderful couple. And then my wife didn't join me, but we climbed to the base of the Torre de Paine.
Which is no small feat, right? I remember following those little orange dots all the way. I actually did it about 25 years ago, and I'll never remember. That is not like some gentle little hike for the faint of heart. And I feel that I'm sure, hopefully all of you have had the chance to go to the Torres del Paine. And if you haven't, I recommend going. As you probably know, Chile is the 7 wonders of the world in one country. It's just stunning, the diversity of opportunity and of exploration. And so, but I loved, and to get to Torres del Paine, you've got to be super committed. And it's pretty amazing. So please, I highly recommend you go. And on your way, stop and see Kingston.
And we also saw condor there. We saw a couple of condors flying.
Okay, bueno. They're incredible, right?
Yeah.
It's really, the wildlife is just stunning.
Thank
Okay,
you.
so on the wines, and then I want to make sure we're talking about everything. I realize that we're now here at, we're about 20 minutes past the hour. So I want to make sure we get to what everybody would like to talk about. But Pinot Noir, as I mentioned, was the heartbreak grape. Why is it called that? It's really difficult to grow, very particular, very finicky in where you can grow it. And then it's really hard to make. And you can really, oh, Ian, I love that you brought your granddaughter. Is that your granddaughter? I'm guessing maybe. She looks like a little bit of a young drinker. I know she has plans to go to the Torres algún día, imagino.
Oh, her hair is still too long.
It's a boy.
It's a boy. Terrific. Even better. That's great. That's great.
Hi, hun.
Hi. So Pinot Noir fit us perfectly because it speaks of where it's from. It's so transparent. The same reason that makes it crazy. Like, for instance, Cabernet, the little known as like winemaker inside tidbit, you can kind of put lipstick on a pig. Like, you can kind of do stuff in the winery if things didn't go so well for you in the vineyard? Not so much with Pinot Noir. It shows everything. So it's the perfect wine for the type A winemaker who is constantly humbled, and it shows of where it's from. And so for us, we thought, wow, if we can be fortunate enough to make a world-class Pinot in the hills of our farm that will speak of where it's from, then we will be able to differentiate it, set ourselves apart, and not be on the commodity boom bust cycle. So that's why we looked at Pinot quite seriously, even though there was very little experience. I found, talking to some of the top Pinot Noir or winemakers in Chile, Ignacio Recabarren, one of my favorites, was he said, I've always wanted to do it, but I've just been so busy over here with Carmenere and I hadn't had the equipment. And so if you could just grow some interesting stuff, maybe we could do something. So at Kingston, we were really on the forefront of Pinot Noir in Chile and cool climate reds in general. The Lucero Syrah, and I'd just be remiss without talking about it. And thank you, Shoshana, for asking me, Shoshana, excuse me, I hope I pronounced your name correctly, about a favorite of my wines. So I have to say, it's a little bit like you're asking your favorite child. So it's kind of hard, and it depends on the day and who I'm having a better time with. But one of my latest favorites has actually been our Lucero. Why? Because it has been particularly challenging as well. So our Syrah are the last grapes to come in. So we pick them. And in fact, we've just been wrapping up in Chile this year in Casablanca. And the team is always tired. The harvest crew is like, we've been picking for a while now. Our season is quite long in Casablanca. By the way, where in other valleys, it might be like a little tsunami of grapes, quick, intense, and done. But for us, because we're looking for gradual flavor development and ripening, it can stretch out. So the Syrah is always a nail biter every year. This year's no exception. We had rains early. So we actually had to pick our Syrah earlier than we wanted. And jury's still out. We'll see what happens. By the way, at Kingston, if we have a year or even just for a certain grape, for instance, you know, the Chards and the Pinots came in before the rains, so they were unaffected. Same with, for instance, if you look at the fires in California, Northern California, the terrible fires we had in 2020, that did not hit every wine out of California in 2020. That impacted the later ripening grapes, the more of the Cab Sauvignon from Napa. But anyway, the Syrah right now is such an underdog for me. It is my favorite. And I love our Lucero because of its elegance and what I call its sort of secondary flavors that come out. So there's a really pretty brightness and acidity to it. I would also say tension. We like wines that have energy to them, but that are not trying to clobber you over the head through brute force. So there is almost a healthy tension and an energy to them while they're still light on their feet. And our Lucero 18, I think, just knocks that ball out of the park. So thank you for that question. How are we doing on time? Other questions? I can see the sun's coming down in my room, so my face is getting lit up a little bit here. How's everybody doing with the wines?
The sun is setting on you, Courtney, which is a beautiful picture. We just have actually a minute left. It's always surprising how quickly these programs pass us by. So I would ask if there's just one question that somebody might have to ask Courtney. And if not, we'll wrap up and let you continue your evening with 4 beautiful bottles of open wine. So happy Thursday night. We'll see how tomorrow goes.
Thank you. And by the way, just a huge thank you, Lauren, and thank you all for your interest in what we are doing in Chile and what we're up to. I understand that this is almost a pre-trip. The Beyond Borders program is also getting excited for 2022 and a trip to come sit with us and our fellow Chilenas, and really immerse yourselves and experience all the best that Chile has to offer. I just need to thank you for that, because we are a long way, and our guests, our visitors mean the world to us. It is that, along with our own team, what keeps us going every day. And it's thanks to being able to do virtual events like we're doing today as a precursor to your visit next year, when we can all raise a glass together, that we are able to continue to keep our lights on and pay our employees and support our local families. So thank you very much for that.
Indeed. You are so welcome, Courtney. I feel like I personally would love to spend the rest of the evening with you, even though I'm sitting by myself with with an excess of wine and not enough friends. But this has been a wonderful experience, and hopefully we can do it again. And we will continue our Chilean programming. Soon we have an upcoming program that's about food. Now, we don't plan on shipping food to your house. I will disclaim that, but about the culture of food innovation. You've learned a bit of tonight about Chile's history as an agricultural powerhouse, which is part of why Philadelphia and Chile have such a strong connection, because we bring in the preponderance of Chilean fruit and wine and meat and produce into the United States through Philadelphia. So that's a foundational piece of our relationship, which affects the ports and creates hundreds of thousands of jobs and massive economic impact on both sides. So we'll take a look at how the food industry in Chile is innovating in response to all the things that are going on in the world, and particularly the climate crisis. And then in the fall, we'll have a Chilean keynote event, and we look forward to sharing more details about that and who our mystery speaker is very soon. And as Courtney alluded to, in March of 2022, you can get on a plane and go somewhere, right? So we do travel all of the time here at the World Affairs Council, but we are leading a trip to Chile, which will of course include a visit to the Casablanca Valley, where Courtney's wine you can taste in real life, in person with her. And so during this tour, you'll get to visit Kingston Family Wineries, but we will also have lunch at the Chilean Senate and check in on how that rewriting of their constitution is going. Or you may have a private dinner at the home of Ellen Guidera, the director of Tierra Hotels in Chile, one of the most exquisite hotel properties and tourism managers in the country. And of course, there will be wine and delicious food and a lot of education and world affairs perspective. So if you're interested about that, please let us know, and you can check out this and all of our other programming on our website, wacphila.org. I'd like to close. I don't want to keep you all, though I feel like people might just be continuing to sit exactly where you are for another hour or so. We'll let you do that without a Zoom camera on, so you don't have a risk of spilling wine on your keyboard, as we mentioned up front. So thank you to Courtney and to Ben and Alexander and all of our partners here tonight. Salud a todos y gracias y buenas noches.
Muy buenas noches.
Thank you.
Que viva
Cheers.
Chile.
Buenas
Que lo
noches.
vayan bien a todos.
Viva Chile.
Thank
Gracias,
you.
Lauren.
Take care, everybody.
Okay.
And please let me know if I can be of any. Yeah, sure. I'm going to put my phone number here in the chat if anybody needs it. If I can be of any help to you as you plan your travels, that's my cell. Let's see here. I got to make sure it goes to everybody. Woo, everybody. Ta-da. And like a good Chilena, I live on WhatsApp. Even though my husband works for Slack, don't tell him. Okay.
Thank you, Courtney.
Bye, everybody. Thank you. Ciao, ciao.
Ciao, Courtney. Viva la revolución. Thank you, Lauren.
Gracias. Buenas.